It's the winter time / spring. That can only Stanley Cup action, baby. That's why I'm here. Plus some other stuff, which we'll talk to Stacey about. Stacey.
Max, we are in Toronto for the blockchain economic event. It's being put on by Sonny Ray. We've interviewed him on Keiser Report. He's the CEO of E1219. This is actually back to OG sort of style Bitcoin conferences. We have some amazing people at this event. People like Adam Back, people like Chris Berniski, people like Hartej, who is going to be on the Keiser Report while we're here. But you know what? While we've been here as well, you know who's been opening her mouth and adopting our way? Christine Lagarde. Bitcoin boosted as IMF boss Christine Lagarde praises cryptocurrency and suggests it could transform the way people save and invest. I would posit, Max, that it has already transformed the way people save and invest. It's already done that. She's saying it could do that.
Bitcoin is a black hole, and it is sucking in folks from all walks of life and money from all points on the globe. And as it expands, it just dwarfs the size of anything else trying to compete with it. That includes various fiat money regimes. It also includes various high-level bankers and economists. So Christine Lagarde is just the latest to get pulled in to the Bitcoin black hole, and she'll be utterly transformed. She'll be talking about the white paper soon. Everything she thought she knew about economics is overruled. Everything she thought she knew about the way the world works is now no longer viable. She is now an apostle of Satoshi. Welcome, Christine Lagarde. Bienvenue, mon petit lapin. Bienvenue. Le Bitcoin, c'est fantastique. Nous sommes très heureux que vous êtes là.
I also want to point out somebody else that we've mocked many times over the years who also has come around, because we did give him a lot of attention when he had the largest short position in silver in the world. We did give him a lot of attention when he basically received a backdoor bailout through the financial crisis. We did give him a lot of attention when he called Bitcoin a fraud. But I do want to remind people from January 9th, 2018, just a few weeks after Jamie Dimon had called Bitcoin a fraud, here's a headline that we didn't cover because we were covering the Genesis block during that week, and that is Jamie Dimon says he regrets calling Bitcoin a fraud and believes in the technology behind it. In September, Dimon called Bitcoin a fraud. I regret making that comment, he said Tuesday on Fox Business. The blockchain is real, he added in the interview. You can have crypto dollars in yen and stuff like that. ICOs, you got to look at everyone individually. The Bitcoin was always, to me, what the governments are going to feel about Bitcoin when it gets really big, and I just have a different opinion than other people. So remember, he's a guy who's a statist. Well, he has to be, right? Because you can't be a free market guy and be the head of the largest bank in the world, and the largest derivatives book, importantly, in the world. Because if that derivatives book blows up, as it threatened to do back in 2008, you need Big Daddy government, Big Mama Janet Yellen, Big Mama Christine Lagarde. You need these people to bail you out.
Next year, Jamie Dimon will be at Burning Man. You will see him stark naked with honey slabbed all over his body, rolling around on a mound of fire ants.
With Brock Pierce.
Brock will be there taping it for this show. He'll be our reporter on the ground. He'll be on the playa, naked. Jamie Dimon talking about Satoshi Nakamoto at Burning Man in 2018. And that's the kind of effect Bitcoin has on the mind. You see, Jamie Dimon is not a dumb man. He's not a stupid man. He does have functioning brain cells. What happens is the blockchain starts to reorient those brain cells like gravity effect on a star or a planet or this table or this earth. It just changes the way the architect of your mind works, especially if you're in the financial industry, to begin to understand that you now are an apostle of Satoshi Nakamoto.
So I want to talk about, like he had mentioned, that governments would respond if the individuals had too much sovereignty, that they're going to smash you, they're going to throw you into a gulag, they are going to destroy you. They will not let you become more powerful than my bank, you collectively more powerful than my bank. So there's another story related to that that shows that, well, in fact, Bitcoin is censorship resistant. You can try all you want to restrict us, to put it down, but the whole community is global It's decentralized, it's peer-to-peer, and it's the smartest people in the world. Now, China, of course, everybody knows, is a giant behemoth state. They have a lot of control over their citizenry. They have a lot of capital controls. They have a lot of the Great Firewall of China. And we know that they've cracked down on Bitcoin. Chinese entrepreneurs have some creative responses to the government's crackdown on crypto. Crypto is far from dead in China. It's starting to eke back into existence. A lot of exchanges did leave the country, but in its place are erupting in China, unique to China, decentralized exchanges. We have them here emerging in the United States and Canada, as well as regulators crack down on exchanges. China's September crackdown also included a ban on ICOs, the crowdfunding schemes based on crypto tokens. In China, as elsewhere, these had acquired a shady reputation. Companies looking to raise funds quickly were selling digital tokens or coins that were supposed to buy access to some product or service in the future, but they often had no way to fulfill these promises. A Chinese term emerged, kongqipi, or air tokens.
Right, we predicted that 2018 would be the year that the nation state is challenged by Bitcoin. And that's exactly what's happening in China. It is censorship resistant. It is resilient. People want to trade. People will find a way. How did the Vietnamese beat America in that war? Because they were resilient. You could bomb them all day long, but they found a way. They found a way to keep going, and they eventually beat an empire. How did the U.S. beat the British Empire? We found a way in the end to beat
French helped us.
And because we asked the French, s'il vous plaît, aide-moi. And we beat the empire. Now we've got a new empire out there called the nation state and the central banking system that runs on fiat money nonsense, and Bitcoin will defeat them.
And the important thing about the eruption of initial coin offerings that happened last year, and it's kind of petered out now that there are crackdowns on it, and apparently innovators and entrepreneurs are finding ways around the regulations. But it did show that the likes of Jamie Dimon had failed. There was a demand and the likes of Jamie Dimon, what he considers the good guys of the regulators and government, that they had cracked down too much. There was demand by people to invest in things. They wanted to participate in the financial environment. A small, young guys with an idea wanted to raise capital, and it was hard for them to access that capital. As they point out here, the ICO ban suppressed this digital crowdfunding of ICOs, but it didn't address the root of the problem. Illegal fundraising of all kinds has thrived in China because the formal banking sector still favors large corporations and state-owned enterprises. Smaller firms and entrepreneurs rely on a shadow banking sector to meet their needs for financing. It's very similar in the U.S. Obviously, it's a more advanced financial system than in China in terms of the state-owned banks, but not too dissimilar. I mean, the small and medium-sized enterprises don't have access to capital like, the ones like Amazon. Like, they could borrow money and do borrow money to share buybacks and things like that.
Right. Well, there is a political edge to it because in China, as entrepreneurs find ways to do end run around the regulatory system and to swap and exchange and do all kinds of crypto-related businesses, the message will not go unnoticed by anyone looking to pursue free speech in China. So no matter how they try to clamp down on free speech, they'll find a way to get that free speech out there, just like they're finding a way right now to get crypto out there. So crypto's leading the way both on finance and in political activism, gearing up to an environment where no state can control speech.
It's censorship resistant in many, many ways, including that it's being used, the power of blockchain technology and Bitcoin that birthed it is that even states are able to see that, when one state like the US controls the global financial system and you cannot access the rails of that financial system without Jamie Dimon or US regulators saying you can access these rails, then you're cut off from the grid and your nation can starve. But if there's a decentralized peer-to-peer anonymous network that is neutral and it functions simply as the rails of a free market system that treats all participants in the market as equal, then it's not, you can't censor it. There's no way to stop transactions from people to get it coming together, agreeing to a price for a product, and exchanging. ideas or products.
Right, so look, the forces that created the birth of the universe, the black hole, the forces that create the birth of life itself, the need to procreate, the forces that guide us as living beings on the multiverse are not going to be stopped by any state. Okay, Bitcoin releases power that is beyond even atomic power. This is cosmic power. It can't be stopped.
Atomic swaps are coming.
Atomic swaps are coming. You know, you can't stop this with any force. If all nation states got together and tried to stop Bitcoin, they would fail. And that's very liberating.
I pointed out that decentralized exchanges are emerging all over the world. They're erupting from the, the plasm of this new ecosystem and environment, and there's evolution of ideas. And the more people or governments or regulators try to stop it, the more anti-fragile it becomes, the more robust. Every time it keeps on coming back stronger and stronger. But the article actually suggests that the Chinese government doesn't actually so much mind all of this stuff happening. They were worried about the destabilization in the financial system which they control, because so many Chinese investors were pouring into ICOs, and there were a lot of scams around. So the article points out that these activities of allowing airdrops and decentralized exchanges may appear to go directly against the Chinese government's orders, but in a sense, they may be what Chinese officials wanted to see. In their September edict, the authorities talked about avoiding market chaos, strengthening the education of investors, and collectively safeguarding the normal financial order. But China doesn't have a fundamental aversion to digital currencies. In fact, the central bank is developing its own fiat digital currency. A digital currency will bring about a new financial ecosystem, said Shanglin Ben, Dean of the Academy of Internet Finance at Zhejiang University. The purpose of the crackdown, he said, was to curb excessive speculation and give the authorities time to upgrade their regulatory capabilities.
Right, they were digging a hole, and they decided to stop digging and declare a victory. Okay, it wasn't their decision. The decision was not the Politburo of China to figure out. They're just reacting to this. Bitcoin black hole is sucking up the entire nation of China, and everyone that rules China is being sucked into the Bitcoin black hole. If you want to be sucked up into the Bitcoin black hole, stay tuned for the second half, and you too will be sucked up into the Bitcoin black hole right after these words. Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Time now to turn to a very special guest. I will preface this by saying, cometh the hour, cometh the man. And I will explain a little bit more what I mean by that. Tone Vase, welcome to the Keiser Report.
Oh, thanks, Max. It's great to be on, finally. I remember watching your show throughout 2013 and 14, even before that. You actually got me into Bitcoin.
Oh, that's awesome. So Tone Vase, I mentioned here at the top that cometh the hour, cometh the man. I think that going back to 2017, Bitcoin actually faced a bit of an existential crisis with the SegWit story. And you guys over there at the World Crypto Network, I'm going to give them a big shout out. You really nursed the community through a difficult period with excellent media and great communication. And just tell a little to folks about, I know it's a pretty complicated story, but if you can kind of encapsulate that, what happened?
It was really a rough time. Now that we look back at it, it was in the spur of the moment how everything was happening. You never really had a chance to step back and think. It was all about whether we can or can't have big blocks. And while there was a moment where I thought, yeah, maybe we could go to a bigger block and increase the Bitcoin size of the throughput of the amount of transactions, it was realized fairly quickly that no one has the power to force everybody in the community to upgrade their Bitcoin nodes to have double the size of the blocks, to go to 2 megabytes or beyond. And the only solution was to find a way to scale without doing that. Segregated witness was a great coding upgrade that didn't force everyone to update. It stayed within the consensus rules, and it was the only way to go. The user-activated soft fork was a little bit reckless, a little bit dangerous. I'm glad I got on the bandwagon around June, July. And by August, it was clear that it was going to win, and I believe that we did.
Okay, there was a bit of an element there, Tone, that, talking about the elements that were involved in that, that it seemed as though we had, you talk about big blocks versus smaller blocks. It seemed like there was a corporate agenda almost, that there were some OGs in the space, some corporations and fund managers that were really leaning on that whole big block story to satisfy a commercial end, and the protocol ejected them. Almost as bad actors in the space.
I agree with that, though I wouldn't go as far as it was some kind of an agenda. A lot of the businesses have structured their businesses based on certain conditions, but Bitcoin isn't a company. Bitcoin didn't promise anything to anyone. And just because some businesses were really dependent on microtransactions before the system was able to feasibly do them for you cheaply, those businesses were going to be in a little bit of trouble, and they had to do more development than they wanted to adjust for SegWit. And I think they wanted to take the lazy way out and force every user to upgrade, and the users said no. The companies need to upgrade with Bitcoin. This is what they chose. And eventually, all of those companies had to upgrade their systems to account for SegWit. And now we have lots of transactions processing very, very quickly and very cheaply. And I think the system is so much better and so much more secure now than before.
The nodes asserted themselves.
They did.
Versus the miners.
They did, and which is a good thing, because when Satoshi initially launched it, he did say one CPU, one vote, but that was under the assumption that everyone is pretty much a miner. Everyone that runs a node can also mine. With ASICs and the advancements in mining, that was no longer feasible. So how does a regular Bitcoiner have a voice in the system? And they do that by running their own node and by validating their own transactions. And the miners are just there to make money by creating new coins, by processing our transactions, and not dictate the future of development.
Some say that the way to be a true Bitcoiner is to run your own node. Do you agree?
I agree. I run my own node. I have been running a single miner. Running a miner is actually very difficult. I'm trying to upgrade my miner now, and I'm running into difficulties. But look, I have a lot of respect for those that are able to run mining operations. I do. But again, if this is going to be a decentralized, peer-to-peer value transfer system, the average person has to have a say in it somehow, and right now they have a say by processing their own transactions with their own node.
I'd say your claim to fame, so to speak, you teach people how to look at technical analysis in a big way. That's something that you're big in the community for. And let me just give you some background here. You, like myself, kind of have a background on Wall Street, and you've done a lot of options trading, and so you have a base experience in the securities industry, which is different than many people that come into crypto, because they come into it really without any experience in securities or Wall Street whatsoever. But so when you talk to people about technical analysis, what are you trying to teach them? What's your goal there?
I'm just trying to teach people that trading is difficult, and it's a skill set. And you don't just come in and do it. What I've noticed when I came into the space in 2013 and 2014 is that so many people were now becoming traders because there was such a little barrier to entry on being a trader because of crypto. There's no age restriction, no geographical restriction, no financial restriction. You can trade with $100, $200. A lot of gamblers came into the space as traders because a lot of gambling sites and poker sites were paying out in crypto, in Bitcoin mostly, and these guys, hey, I want to do something else. I don't have to play poker all the time. I'm going to start trading. And what I've noticed is there wasn't that many professional traders and competent traders in the space. So I started writing articles about technical analysis, and that grew into a YouTube channel about technical analysis and trying to predict the price of Bitcoin. I've had lots of really good calls. I've had a few bad calls too. I mean, that's the life of being a trader. And now I've just been traveling the country doing little workshops of 10 to 20 people that want to spend the whole day learning the basics of technical analysis for trading. I think it can only help any trader.
Well, the great value in this is twofold. One is traders obviously looking for gains, but probably more important with technical analysis, it addresses risk management. Risk management is the key to trading success. It's something that technical analysis helps because it gives you the ability to pick price points where you might want to put on a strategy to get you out of a market that's not going in your favor, this type of thing. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think that a trader should trade as least as possible. You want to pick the perfect points where the statistics and probabilities are in your favor. And the best advantage to technical analysis, it can tell you where you're wrong. Based on technical analysis and you're entering a trade for a position, you should already have a metric saying, okay, if it goes against me this amount, I need to get out of this trade and wait for another opportunity.
So trading technical analysis, if you have a certain threshold that you are designating as your risk tolerance, that applies to any security, any altcoin, any coin across any market, regardless of what the company or the coin is about. You have a certain bias toward risk. This helps you manage that risk. Talking about Wall Street for a second, you know, futures contracts were introduced in late 2017, December of 2017. Has it had any impact? What do you think?
I don't think it had any actual impact on Bitcoin other than the FOMO speculation that took place leading into those contracts. I felt that last year, 7,500 should have been the top for Bitcoin. I underestimated the kind of FOMO and exuberance people will have by the fact that Wall Street is coming in. The price went all the way to 20,000. I mean, I was trying to predict it each step of the way. And the day the futures launched, people realized that, hey, it's not that big a deal. The volume on the futures, while increasing every week, is still pretty small. They're also cash settled. And because they're cash settled, they shouldn't have much of an effect on the underlying price of Bitcoin. It's not like the gold futures, where the futures themselves are price discovery for gold. The futures on Bitcoin are more like the S&P 500 futures. They don't really have an effect on the underlying stocks of the S&P 500. So I see it as the same way, and it wasn't that big of a deal after they launched. And it's great because now Bitcoin is definitely more legit to the average person that is thinking, should I get in, should I not get in? While clearly the CME and the financial world considers it legit because of the futures. So I think it has it's great going forward, but as far as immediate effect on the price of Bitcoin, I don't think it has all that much.
Talking about Wall Street again, a futures contract does give an institutional player ability to manage risk because they can hedge a position, which means they can take bigger positions. And this is unique now to Bitcoin because there are no futures contracts on any other altcoin at the moment. So my question is about altcoins. I think some people view you as being a Bitcoin maximalist, so that tend to shun the altcoin market. And can you talk a little bit about that idea?
I am a bit of a Bitcoin maximalist, but that's not because I hate all of the altcoins and I think Bitcoin is going to be king because I have money in Bitcoin. I only think that Bitcoin is going to be the winner. That's why my money is in Bitcoin. As far as the altcoins go, there was a round of altcoins that came in the early days of 2014. Coins like Litecoin, coins like Monero, like your own coin, Maxcoin.
Oh my God! Maxcoin?
When these altcoins showed up, I didn't have a big problem with these coins because they were honestly created with a Genesis block, and like everybody knew about it. They were launched, well, in the case of Litecoin, it was all fair game for anyone to get. And then the next round of altcoins came in as a sole source for the founder to get rich. And I immediately classify all of those coins as outright scams. Because if the founder has an advantage, or if you mine the coin for a month and then it goes proof of stake, and then the next round of coins, which is what Ethereum kicked off, was where you actually create it from the beginning and pre-sell it to a bunch of people, which I thought was an outright security. Like in the case of Ethereum and every ICO that followed. So to me,
Ethereum is an ICO.
It is an ICO.
It came in before people started calling it ICOs.
Correct.
It is an ICO.
Right.
And it is a security.
Well, to me it is.
And you're a Wall Street veteran. I'm a Wall Street veteran.
Yeah.
It looks like a duck. It smells like a duck. It quacks like a duck.
Exactly.
It's a freaking security.
So to me, everything just got progressively worse. Now, I will say that even though I don't consider coins like Maxcoin, like Litecoin, like Monero, scams like I do on the rest, I still feel that there is only room for one blockchain the way we only have room for one internet. So I do think that Bitcoin will continue to separate from all of these other altcoins, even the honestly created ones over time, the way like Amazon continues to separate from any other online retailer.
Right, so we would put ICOs into that category of securities offerings. I think we would agree on that. And I'm just going to move on to my last question, which is that the 2018, 2019 time horizon, what about the emerging second layer of Bitcoin like Lightning Network? So your thoughts?
I think that the Lightning Network and all the progress that's happening there is moving even faster than I expected. I think they are going to focus on making it very user-friendly to the point where it's still complicated to set up your own Bitcoin node, but it should be as easy as downloading an app to have your own Lightning node and using these Lightning channels. They should bring microtransactions, the thing that people were expecting on the protocol itself, but lots of smart engineers basically looked at it and said that's not really feasible. That's not how systems scale. So I really am looking forward to those Lightning channels, give us microtransactions, and they should give you another layer of privacy. I think there could be lots of good things that could be done as a second layer of Bitcoin to obscure those transactions to finally make Bitcoin fungible and actually anonymous.
All right, Tone Vays, thanks so much for being on the Keiser Report.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Keiser Report. With me, Max Keiser, and Stacey Herbert. I want to thank Tone Vays, legend. If you want to catch us on Twitter, it's Keiser Report. Until next time, bye, y'all.